Andrew, is it fair to say that given that context, given this is likely, we think now, to be the last budget before an election, that they've actually been restrained to an extent, compared to what other politicians and political leaders have done in recent years?
Well, there's that decision's yet to be announced, money. And I don't know if it's that restrained to give an energy rebate to absolutely everyone. So someone's already asked me, how does this operate? So I should explain that to our viewers, Kieran. You get 75 a quarter, all of us. You know, Gina Rinehart gets it, Twiggy Forrest gets it, we all get it. Everyone watching gets it. And I think it just rolls pretty much straight onto your bill. But I asked Jim Chalmers last year in the Great Hall, in this after the press club address, he was only giving an energy rebate then to households on 160 grand or less, so 80 grand each, say the couple earned, and he made out then, well, that, you know, we've got to look after the vulnerable. We can't just give it to everyone. So hasn't he changed his tune? Have a listen to this.
Why do people on the dole get more money from the government out of this budget, but not a household on more than 160k a year who, for example, don't get the electricity bill relief? What do you say to those working full time about why those on the dole get relief but they don't? And if the answer is stage 3 tax cuts next year, why were you seemingly too ashamed of them to mention them in the budget?
I'm not associating you necessarily with a piece of madness that I heard from Angus Taylor yesterday, that what worried him about our changes in social security was that it meant that the broader Australian community would be funding help for the most vulnerable. Well, that is the whole basis of social security. I mean, that is the whole basis of social security. And
got a big clap for that. Now we all get the energy rebate. He's been mugged by political reality. So what's going to happen tomorrow is that Paul Erickson, the National Secretary of the Labor Party, just like probably Andrew Hurst, the Director of the Liberal Party, go and do focus groups. And they will get a reaction to the budget. And every message you hear from then on will come from those focus groups. And last year after this, they started talking in the days after about Middle Australia, because they realised they hadn't done enough for Middle Australia. And so now they obviously think the stage 3 tax cuts ahead of an election isn't enough either. They needed to throw this sweetener in as well and claim that it will help bring down inflation at the same time.
But Andrew, isn't this a bit of a solution, can I suggest, to a few things? A, to bring down the inflation, right? That's one thing. But secondly, to stop the political advertising ahead of the next election.
That's right.
Saying that they broke the promise that they would bring down energy prices by $275 per household.
Absolutely.
Now they've done it for every household.
It's politically ingenious, really.
Yeah.
But, you know...
Well...
doesn't...
Does it make it good policy?
Well, and I ask
exactly.
The fact that it goes up and down the income scale, because we've been talking about the risk of inflation, but the fact that those wealthiest Australians and households get it, they're not necessarily going to notice the $300.
They're not going to notice it, that's right.
But then it might not add to the inflationary impact at that end. But at the lower and middle income end, people will spend every cent.
Yeah, but you know, so every household will spend every cent. That's because that's what households do. And especially if they're under financial pressure, they will spend it. Where are bad and doubtful debts that you see in our economy right now? They're not in the banks, because the banks actually sort of, if you like, filter out any potential bad risks. They're all in the energy companies. Energy companies have got dramatically rising bad and doubtful debts. So this also takes a bit of pressure off some of those energy companies as well.
Imagine we were sitting here tonight and he did means test the energy rebate once again. Yeah. I mean, you'd be sitting here saying, oh, it's typical Labor, they're looking after Labor voters, it's politically expedient. I think he did the right thing by putting this economy-wide. It's the right thing to do. Yeah, the higher income earners aren't going to feel it as much, but why should
it also makes it easier to administer it?
I was about to mention that, Kieran. So basically, it's been put to me with these things, you've got two choices. You either do family tax benefit part A and B and the people on welfare, or you do everyone. Otherwise, you have to create a whole new system to get the data if you put the cut-off at $250 grand per household.
And this is simple, right? This is simple, because if you pay your, as Andrew said, you pay your electricity bill quarterly. you don't have to apply for a rebate.
But the
or
real
anything like that. It
criticism
just comes off
economically that the Treasurer is going to face is the spending. The fact that there is so much spending out to the out years with very big yawning gaps in terms of the deficit and the debt that emerges. That's where the criticism is going to come. And so then selectively picking off, I don't know, something like energy rebates, rental rebates, take pressure off at one end, but they're adding pressure on at the other end. And I think that's the issue. And then the second factor is as well suggesting that all this money is going to go into the economy and somehow it's not going to add to inflation.
Exactly.
That is going to be the real pressure point.
I think some of this is pretty brazen, frankly. The inflation forecast, claiming this is all deflationary, including the stage 3 tax cuts. I mean, come on.
And also halving migration, if they can do it, sure.
Well, yeah, I don't believe they'll be able to do it.
Why don't you believe they'll be able to do it?
Well, they haven't demonstrated they could so far. They had a target this year of 375. They're saying it's going to be 395. And the figures out early in January and February indicated the net migration was still even higher than that level.
And this does feed into the view that there will be an early election, though, because if there is an early election, say September, October, November, it won't be October because Queensland is then, but say September, November, December, then you don't have to live with the reality of what Andrew's saying, i.e. we got the inflation forecast wrong.
That's why it's brazen.
So, Andrew, but at what point can the government go to the polls without actually needing some reason to go to the polls, some political reason?
Well, I think, yeah. And I don't think it would be September. Yeah. Everyone's talking about November 30, December 7. Look, I had messages this evening and even this morning from the opposition. I can tell you their view, at least, is that this budget means, with the inflation forecast, there's an early election. They're thinking about what they do in this situation, which is don't let it get to the end of the year and inflation's not 2.75%. You look like an idiot. Get out there now. And there is a belief in Labor at the moment, Kieran, I can tell you, that they can still win majority government. Yeah. They believe that their vote is holding up in WA, popular to contrary belief, because that's a key battleground.
And Laura, that's exactly right.
They held up that GST deal, which I think from the budget papers we've just learned is worth about $50 billion to WA. They lose 4 seats there in their minority territory. Look, I don't know whether we can say early election. I think what this budget does is gives them the option of an early election.
I agree with that.
But if, economists are starting to say, oh, okay, we're going to get an interest rate cut early next year, surely they wait for that and go just after.
Well, the Treasury says that we won't get it till mid-year.
So I find one other thing very bizarre for I seem to think that everybody's cheering for lower interest rates, including the government right now.
Because they're predicting that unemployment rates
rates going up. And yet at the same time to do that, they're actually cheering for higher unemployment.
That's right.
So it seems a very peculiar thing for a Labor government.
I'll pay you $1 million if you can get any Labor frontbencher or backbencher to say that.
But that's the sad reality. Surely having 100,000 more people in work should be the priority of any government.